Are you constantly trying to look for this high self-esteem? Have you practiced positive affirmation, tried to let go of these negative thoughts, but find that you're still not feeling good enough about yourself? Watch today's video while I'll go through my book therapy pick of the month, which is a must-read for you if you struggle with this. My name is Diana Garcia. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Florida, owner of a private practice called Nurturing Minds Counseling. If you're new around here, this is part of my monthly book therapy series while I pick one mental health self-help book to review, recommend, and pick out at least 3 insights just in case you never actually read the book. Okay, so let's just jump into the slides. So as you can see from the slides here, this month's pick is the Mindfulness and Acceptance Workbook for Self-Esteem. You see it on the screen. I'm holding it up here, specifically using acceptance and commitment therapy to move beyond negative self-talk and embrace self-compassion. It's by 2 psychologists, Dr. Oliver and Dr. Bennett. I picked up this book last year, but I just recently finished reading it. This is a book that I recommend, one, because I think so many of us struggle with self-esteem and are constantly on the quest for high self-esteem. And 2, acceptance and commitment therapy is a modality that I really use with my clients. And I think they did a really great job of breaking this down into kind of an easy to understand workbook filled with exercises and things that you can do if you've never stepped foot in a therapist's office. Okay, so this is a summary of the book. You can see the book is broken down into 3 parts. Part 1, making sense of self-esteem. This is really more where it goes through a review of like why self-esteem is important to us, really from an evolutionary perspective, how we've developed the need to be socially accepted. One of the reasons being that we needed to be part of the tribe in order to survive. Also a little bit of just how self-esteem develops just growing up as a child and how that forms, and really focusing on why we should let go of the need for high self-esteem. I know that might sound out there, and actually focus on self-acceptance instead. So stay tuned when my insights is about that. Part 2, it's all about self-care. So really more just kind of covering some of the basics of self-care and introducing the concepts of self-compassion, which if you're interested in learning more about self-compassion, you can check out this video where I review Dr. Kristen Neff's book, which is all about self-compassion. And then part 3, the 6 steps to self-acceptance. You can see them listed here. Really, this takes the 6 kind of core processes that we use in acceptance and commitment therapy, and they just kind of have a chapter broken down with each, explaining each process, and again, doing a lot of meaningful exercises. Okay, so my first highlight or insight from the book, first is just really talking about what is self-esteem. So self-esteem is an evaluation of your entire self. So when we think of low self-esteem, it's kind of thinking about that would look like this formula, like I equals not good enough. And so really, that's when we're talking about low self-esteem. In mainstream society, a lot of people will endorse having low self-esteem, and the opposite of that, it's really this constant search for feeling better, so really trying to have high self-esteem. So one just quick exercise to really start to question this kind of focus exclusively on self-esteem, it's how can you reasonably come up with one judgment about yourself, your entire sense of self, that captures the essence of who you are, right? How is that even possible? And really starts to question this notion of self-esteem. Like, should we put so much focus and emphasis on this one evaluation that really is supposed to encompass this whole sense of who you are? So a quick example here, you can see here that there's a picture of a chair. So if you're sitting on a chair, if you're sitting somewhere, or even if you're standing, just imagine the chair, any chair, right? And just really take a moment to kind of get settled in your chair wherever you're sitting, or imagine if you're standing up. And I want you to kind of finish this sentence. The chair is, and actually I want you to write that in the comments below so I can see what you guys write. So the chair is, and pick one quality to describe this chair, whatever it is. I'm going to give you a moment here. Okay, again, write that in the comments so I know what that quality is. Now I want you to think about this one quality that you pick. So I'll pick, the chair is firm, right? My chair. Really, does this one quality, this one sentence, does it fully encompass the entire essence of this chair? Are there other qualities of this chair? Will the chair always be firm? Hopefully for a long time, but at some point, my chair, over time might not feel as firm. And so really recognizing that it's really hard to come up with one sentence or evaluation about even an inanimate object. So how can we do that with ourselves? How can we come up with one evaluation, which is typically, not good enough when we're thinking of low self-esteem, and how can that reasonably encompass every sense of who we are? All right, problem with high self-esteem. So the first one is, if you look at this picture here, it's almost imagining, if we're thinking of high self-esteem, it's like if you had this devil and this angel on your shoulder, right? Like the picture. And when we're thinking of high self-esteem, like the mainstream idea, it's like, okay, you have to quiet down the devil and like feed the angel. And so what that looks like is you're going to challenge or let go of any negative thoughts about yourself, and you're going to focus on really incorporating positive self-talk about yourself, right? Incorporate like positive affirmations, positive mantras. Now, if that works for you, great, no problem. It might work in the short term, but really when we're thinking of long term, it's pretty common that, some of these thoughts about yourself, the devil, these thoughts about this negative self-story about yourself will come back. And that's normal. And that's part of just the way our minds work, which the book really goes through, and specifically how language in our mind works. So really, it's this constant focus on like quieting the devil and feeding the angel. And one, it also really talks about that everything that these negative self-stories say about yourself are intrinsically bad, which again, we really then talk about like these qualities of yourself that maybe you don't like. Are they necessarily bad though? Not really. And then this other piece, if we look here, the more we try to let go of these negative self-talk, and the more we try to battle the devil and really make sure that we don't listen to it or like that we don't feed it, it's almost like we're putting so much attention and focus and not having it. It's almost like the things we resist persist. Right? And so that's the other catch with the problem with high self-esteem. It's that in your battle to constantly let go of these negative thoughts about yourself, really what you're doing is just putting more focus and attention in not having them. But that's just putting more focus and attention from your life. It's stealing that focus and attention. The third quality, it's typically high self-esteem doesn't last, right? The reality is that life is hard sometimes. Things don't work out the way we want them to work out. We're fallible human beings. We make mistakes. Things show up, uncomfortable thoughts and feelings, events happen. And of course, in those moments, it would be normal that these uncomfortable, thoughts and feelings show up. And typically we'll find in those moments, it's really hard to kind of sustain this high self-esteem about yourself. Because typically when we're thinking of high self-esteem, it's kind of associated with your achievements or when you're doing well. And yeah, when you're doing well, it's easy to feel good about yourself. Although that's not always the case. Even when we're doing well, sometimes we don't feel really great about ourselves. But again, it's really hard to sustain this. And this last piece here, that again, it associates your worth with kind of external factors, right? So your worth is kind of associated with something outside of yourself or achievements and things like that, which again, isn't really sustainable. And I'll also add here this constant kind of search for high self-esteem. Like, really think about it. You can have high self-esteem. Like, you might think like, all right, I'm the best boss in the world. I've got an award. I'm awesome. And let's say you make a mistake and you drop the ball, but you don't want to acknowledge that because your high self-esteem is saying like, oh no, I'm awesome. There's no way I could have done that. In that moment, that high self-esteem isn't really going to help you move forward. It actually might hinder you. So again, it's just kind of really noticing some of these problems with the constant search for high self-esteem. All right, and I didn't list it here, but kind of the antidote that they talk about in the book, instead of focusing on high self-esteem, you actually really want to focus on self-acceptance. And there's a chapter on here, exercises for you to practice that instead of trying to have this really high estimation of yourself, it's really learning to encompass and accept all of the parts of yourself, right? So some of those uncomfortable thoughts about yourself, self-stories, and some of the positive thoughts about yourself, like being able to hold them all and not really give one more focus or the other unless it really matters to you or at least it really helps you move forward, right? So the shift from self-acceptance, it also removes this constant pressure of having to get rid of some of these uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. And then you can really hone in your focus on what are the things that really matter to you in your life. Okay, so the third insight, it's really an exercise. And like I said, there's exercises throughout the book, but one common theme that they talk about is that with self-esteem or low self-esteem, there's really this constant sense of comparison. They also go through like why that's the case from an evolutionary perspective. But going back, it's learning how you can start to let go of some of these unhelpful comparisons, especially when it's not working for you. So one kind of exercise here, you can see through the steps, reminding yourself that I'm here. So whenever you notice that you're getting caught in this comparison trap, and you can kind of check out this video on comparison and how it can backfire on you. But going back, so when you notice you're getting caught in this comparison trap, the first step is really to slow down and really kind of consciously step out of this autopilot mode. So a lot of times when we are just like doing this comparison or automatic mode, we might not even realize it and we might act before we've really stopped. So if you can start to train yourself to slow down and catch that comparison and really start to tune into what's happening in your body in the here and now. The next step with that, it's taking a moment to take 2 to 3 mindful breaths to really kind of arrive in your body, help your nervous system kind of steady a little bit and calm down. And then it's this really clear piece of reminding yourself, I am here and there you are over there. So I am here and there you are over there. We are separate and different people, right? So really starting to recognize that you guys are 2 completely different people. Their needs and your needs are completely different, which are extremely difficult for people that struggle with people pleasing. But again, to really start to help you create this separation. And then this last piece, with kindness, asking yourself, what do I want in this situation? What is important to me? What do I need? So really kind of check in and tune in with your feelings to help you kind of prompt, how do you want to show up in this moment? Not based on the comparison, not based on the need to please or to avoid confrontation or something like that. So let me know in the comments, type yes if you plan on picking up this book. Okay, so I highly encourage you to watch this video next because it's all about this book therapy on the self-compassion book that's really going to help you integrate some of the learning even in this book. And as always, I really encourage you guys to continue nurturing your mind, body, and soul, whatever that looks like for you guys. And thanks for watching today's video.